The discovery. Archivist Kirks adjusted their sensory appendages as they stared at the holographic display floating before them in the great archive of the unified species. Something wasn't right. After 3 centuries of cataloging planetary systems, they had never encountered an entry quite like this one. The planet in question was unremarkable at first glance, a small blue world orbiting an average yellow star in the spiral arm of a typical galaxy. But its classification made Kirks's crystalline structure vibrate with confusion. Written in pulsing red glyphs across the entry were the words, Maximum HFY do not engage, followed by the highest danger rating Kirks had ever seen in their career. Most dangerous worlds came with extensive documentation, atmospheric composition analysis, hostile wildlife catalogs, geological instability metrics. This entry contained almost nothing, just 5 warning symbols and a single line. Don't even think about it. Kirks initiated a deeper archive search, their crystalline fingers dancing across the neural interface. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. Basic scans showed it was teeming with life, but nothing particularly exotic. No devastating supervolcanoes, no planet-wide storms, no predators larger than a small transport vessel. The dominant species appeared to be bipedal mammals with minimal natural defenses and unremarkable physical capabilities. This must be an error, Kirks muttered, the words emerging as subtle vibrations in the archive's hushed atmosphere. They began composing a correction request when a priority message flashed across their display. Notai C. Further investigation of archive entry E3721. Sol system, Earth, is forbidden without Omega-level clearance. This is your only warning. Kirks's crystalline form dimmed slightly in surprise. Omega clearance was reserved for information so sensitive that even most High Council members didn't have access. What could be so dangerous about this seemingly ordinary world that warranted such secrecy? The archivists knew they should stop. Their job was to maintain records, not investigate them. But curiosity had always been Kirks's weakness. It's what had drawn them to the archives in the first place. With practiced ease, they initiated a subroutine that would mask their data trail and began digging deeper into restricted files. The first reference they found was in a military incident report from 200 cycles ago. The hegemony of 7 suns, one of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy, had attempted to establish a monitoring post in Earth's solar system. The entire battle fleet had vanished without a trace. Kirks found more reports, each more disturbing than the last. A Zexithra mining corporation had tried to establish automated extraction facilities on Earth's moon. Within days, their most advanced AI systems had been compromised and turned against them. A Valaxian research vessel, equipped with technology centuries beyond Earth's development level, had been disabled by what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons. But it was the psychological evaluation reports that truly made Kirks's crystalline structure resonate with fear. The humans of Earth displayed traits that defied conventional xenological understanding. They continued fighting long past the point where any rational species would surrender. They deliberately sought out and explored dangerous situations. Most terrifyingly, they seemed to become more innovative and resourceful when faced with overwhelming odds. Kirks was so engrossed in the classified files that they didn't notice the archive's environmental systems powering down. The first warning was the sudden absence of the ever-present hum of data streams. Then the emergency containment fields activated, bathing the chamber in crimson light. Archivist Kirks. A voice spoke from behind them, carrying the unmistakable harmonic resonance of a High Council member. You have accessed restricted information above your clearance level. Come with us. As Kirks turned to face the security team, their neural interface captured one final glimpse of the Earth file. A new notation was being added to the entry. Warning: this species does not understand the concept of impossible. First contact disaster. Supreme Commander Vexillera of the Concordiad Exploration Fleet stood on the command deck of the Stellar Seeker, pride of the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy. The massive vessel, stretching nearly 3 kilometers in length, represented the pinnacle of achievement in faster-than-light travel, quantum shielding, and automated defense systems. Their mission seemed simple enough. Establish first contact with a developing species that had just achieved rudimentary spaceflight. The humans of Earth had managed to place a few primitive satellites in orbit and send basic probes to their nearest planetary neighbor. By all measurements, they were at least 2 centuries away from achieving meaningful space travel. Status report. HFY commanded, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with anticipation. All systems nominal. Supreme Commander. The ship's neural interface responded. We are maintaining position behind the third planet's natural satellite. Their primitive detection systems show no sign of recognizing our presence. HFY's facial ridges arranged themselves in what passed for a smile among their species. The Stellar Seeker's cloaking technology could fool even the most sophisticated scanning arrays. These humans, with their radio telescopes and basic radar systems, had no hope of detecting them. Begin standard first contact protocol. HFY ordered. Launch the automated embassy pods. Sleek, silver pods detached from the Stellar Seeker's hull, designed to land at strategic locations across Earth's surface. Each contained translation matrices, cultural exchange databases, and gift packages of basic technological improvements deemed safe for a species at this development stage. The pods never made it to their destinations. Supreme Commander. The tactical officer's voice carried notes of disbelief. The pods, they're being intercepted. HFY's tendrils stiffened in shock as they watched dozens of small craft emerge from hidden bases on Earth's moon. The human vessels were crewed by Concordiate standards, little more than metal shells powered by chemical rockets, but they moved with impossible precision, targeting the embassy pods with primitive but devastatingly effective kinetic weapons. Impossible, HFY whispered. Their moon shows no signs of development. Our surveys confirmed. Multiple launches detected from Earth's surface. The tactical officer interrupted. They're using some kind of masked launch facilities. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. HFY watched in growing horror as swarms of missiles rose from Earth's surface. The humans had somehow hidden entire military installations from the Concordiate's most advanced scanning technology. But how? Why? They weren't supposed to be capable of this level of deception. Raise shields, HFY ordered. But take no aggressive action. There must be some mistake. The first wave of human weapons impacted the Stellar Seeker's quantum shields. By all known laws of physics, the primitive nuclear devices should have been harmlessly absorbed. Instead, the explosions cascaded through the shield harmonics in ways that should have been impossible, creating feedback loops that threatened to collapse the entire defense grid. They're using the moon's gravity well to amplify their weapon effects. The science officer reported, their voice trembling. The humans have weaponized basic physical principles we considered too primitive to be a threat. A transmission cut through the chaos, broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Concordiate standard language. Attention alien vessel. This is Earth Defense Command. Your presence in our solar system has been monitored since you entered the Oort cloud. Your vessel's capabilities have been analyzed. Your weaknesses have been identified. You have 30 seconds to retreat beyond the orbit of Neptune. This is your only warning. How? HFY demanded. How did they translate our language? How did they know we were coming? We've been monitoring them for decades. They shouldn't be capable of any of this. Supreme Commander. The tactical officer's voice had gone quiet. They're launching a second wave. These missiles, they're different. The humans have somehow reversed engineered aspects of our shield technology just from scanning us for the past few minutes. HFY felt something they had never experienced in centuries of exploration. Pure, primal fear. These humans hadn't just prepared for first contact. They had anticipated it, planned for it, and developed countermeasures that turned the Concordiate's own technological advantages against them. Full retreat, HFY ordered. Get us out of this system. Now, as the stellar seeker flowed into hyperspace, the Accelera composed their report to the Concordiate High Council. How could they explain that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their military strength, but their paranoia, their ability to look at the stars and prepare for the worst, their talent for turning any advantage, no matter how small, into a devastating counterattack? The final line of their report would later become the foundation for Earth's galactic classification. They were ready for us before we even knew we were coming. The humans haven't just mastered spaceflight. They've mastered the art of making themselves appear harmless while preparing for war. There is no greater danger than a species that chooses to appear weak. The observers report. Dr. Zar-Eth adjusted the calibration of her long-range observation equipment, carefully hidden within an asteroid at the edge of Earth's solar system. As the Galactic Council's leading xenobiologist, she had studied thousands of species across the known universe. But after 3 years of observing humans, she still struggled to make sense of her findings. Her laboratory capsule was filled with holographic displays showing different aspects of human activity. Each one seemed to contradict established xenobiological principles. Her latest report to the Council was already causing controversy among her peers. Research log, entry 2749. She spoke into her neural recorder. I continue to observe behavioral patterns in humans that defy conventional evolutionary theory. Today's example. A group of humans deliberately entered an active volcanic zone to rescue a single domestic animal. The concept of risking multiple lives for a non-essential member of their social group contradicts all known survival strategies. She gestured at another display, bringing up footage of human athletic events. Their physical capabilities remain an enigma. Individually, humans are unexceptional. Average strength, speed, and sensory acuity by galactic standards. But they routinely push themselves far beyond their biological limits through sheer force of will. The footage showed humans running marathons until they collapsed, climbing mountains without protective equipment, swimming across vast oceanic distances. Most species evolved to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary risks. Humans actively seek out challenges, deliberately placing themselves in dangerous situations for what they call entertainment or sport. Dr. Zar-Eth's attention was drawn to a new alert from her cultural analysis system. She had been tracking human entertainment media, particularly their science fiction stories. What she found there disturbed her more than any physical capability. Most concerning is humanity's unique ability to imagine potential futures and then actively work to make them real, she continued. They create stories about impossible technologies or scenarios, then treat these stories as blueprints rather than mere entertainment. I've documented numerous cases where human scientific advancement was directly inspired by their fictional narratives. She pulled up another display, this one showing human military exercises. Their approach to warfare is equally baffling. When faced with a technologically superior opponent in their training scenarios, humans don't focus on matching that technology. Instead, they devise ways to turn their own technological limitations into advantages. They treat disadvantages as challenges to overcome rather than accepting them as limitations. A priority message flashed across her main screen. Another request from the Council for clarification of her findings. They were particularly interested in her psychological analysis of human problem-solving methods. The human approach to obstacles is unique among all studied species, she dictated. When told something is impossible, they don't accept this as a fact. They treat it as a personal challenge. They actively seek out problems that have been deemed unsolvable. Most disturbingly, they become more resourceful and innovative when faced with overwhelming odds. Dr. Zar-Eth paused her recording, watching a new piece of footage from Earth. A human settlement had been struck by a natural disaster, the type of event that would cause most species to abandon the area. Instead, she watched as humans rushed toward the danger, working together to save strangers, rebuilding even as the disaster continued. In conclusion, she resumed, I must emphasize that traditional threat assessment metrics are inadequate when applied to humans. Their greatest strength isn't their technology, their physical capabilities, or even their intelligence. It's their absolute refusal to accept limitations. She added a final note, one she knew would be controversial among her peers. Humans don't just solve problems. They actively seek them out. They don't just adapt to their environment. They force their environment to adapt to them. Most crucially, they view the impossible not as a barrier, but as a starting point. As she prepared to transmit her report, Dr. Zareth noticed something that made her primary heart skip a beat. Her supposedly undetectable observation post had been tagged with a simple radio signal from Earth. The message was brief. "We see you out there. Nice research. Want to compare notes?" With trembling appendages, she began composing an emergency addendum to her report. The humans hadn't just detected her presence, they had allowed her to continue her research, turning her study of them into their study of how aliens conduct scientific observation. Final recommendation, she added. Any species attempting to study humans should be aware that they are likely also being studied in return. There is no such thing as a one-way observation when it comes to humanity. The diplomatic incident. Ambassador Engstol of the Galactic Diplomatic Corps stood before the Emergency Council, their normally iridescent scales dulled with stress. The holographic recordings playing behind them showed scenes from what was supposed to be a carefully controlled first diplomatic contact with Earth. Instead, it had become yet another example of why humans defied conventional handling. "As you can see," Engstol began, "we followed all standard protocols. After the previous incidents, we decided to approach humans through official diplomatic channels. We chose to present them with an impossible challenge, as is traditional when evaluating a species' potential for galactic membership." The recording showed the human diplomatic team receiving the challenge, solving an energy crisis on a distant colony world. The problem had been specifically designed to be unsolvable with humanity's current technology level. "We expected them to acknowledge their limitations and accept a standard technological development package," Engstol continued. "Instead, they asked for 1 week to study the problem." The council members shifted uncomfortably as the next scenes played out. The humans had approached the energy crisis from an entirely unexpected angle. Instead of trying to generate more power, they had completely redesigned the colony's infrastructure to require less energy while maintaining the same level of functionality. "They didn't solve the problem we presented," Engstol explained, their scales flickering with mixed admiration and concern. "They changed the parameters of the problem itself. When we explained that this wasn't the intended solution, they submitted 3 alternative proposals, each more radical than the last. The final proposal had been the most shocking, a complete reimagining of how the colony's society could function with minimal energy requirements while actually improving the quality of life for its inhabitants. It wasn't just a technical solution. It was a fundamental challenge to how the galactic community approached resource management. But the true diplomatic incident occurred when we revealed that the crisis was a test," Engstol said, their voice dropping. The humans became agitated. They had already begun implementing their solutions on several of their own cities as test cases. They demanded to know if there were other colonies facing similar challenges. A council member interrupted, their crystalline form pulsing with confusion. "Are you saying they continued solving a problem they knew was hypothetical?" "Worse," Engstol replied. "They accused us of unethical behavior, for presenting a false crisis when real energy shortages exist in other parts of the galaxy. They've since begun freely distributing their solution methodologies to any world that requests them, completely bypassing our technological development protocols." The recordings showed the aftermath. Dozens of worlds beginning to implement human-designed solutions, centuries of carefully managed technological progression thrown into chaos. Traditional client species were asking uncomfortable questions about why they hadn't been allowed to develop their own solutions to local problems. The humans have inadvertently triggered what they call a paradigm shift across 17% of governed space, Engstol reported. Their solutions are spreading faster than we can assess their implications. They're not just solving problems. They're changing how other species think about solving problems. A senior council member raised their appendage. Surely we can simply restrict the flow of information. Angstol's scales flushed deep blue with embarrassment. We tried. The humans responded by launching what they call an open-source initiative, a public database of solution methodologies freely available to any species with basic communication technology. They claim that restricting access to potential solutions for real problems is, quote, morally bankrupt. The council chamber erupted in alarmed discussions. Angstol waited for the chaos to subside before delivering their final report. Most concerning is not the solutions themselves, but the effect human problem-solving methods are having on other species. Worlds that have adopted human methodologies are showing disturbing signs of increased innovation and decreased reliance on council guidance. The humans aren't just solving problems, they're teaching others to solve problems in human ways. Angstol's scales shifted to the deep purple of grave concern. They've turned our diplomatic test into a galaxy-wide revolution in problem-solving methodology. And when we protested, they simply asked why we're afraid of letting species solve their own problems. The recording ended with a human diplomat's parting words. If you didn't want solutions, you shouldn't have shown us problems. We're physically incapable of seeing a fixable problem and not trying to fix it. It's kind of our thing. As the council debated emergency measures, Angstol added a personal note to their report. Traditional diplomatic protocols are insufficient for dealing with humans. They don't recognize diplomatic fiction. Every scenario we present becomes real to them. Every problem we describe becomes a challenge they must solve. Most dangerously, they believe that solutions, like knowledge itself, should be freely shared. They are diplomatic chaos agents of the highest order. The final classification. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so full. Representatives from every major spacefaring civilization gathered for what would become known as the Earth Classification Summit. The evidence screens floating around the chamber displayed reports from military encounters, scientific studies, diplomatic missions, and countless failed attempts to understand or contain humanity's influence on galactic society. High Counselor Ixthen, the oldest living member of the Council, activated their quantum resonance field to bring the chamber to order. Their energy form flickered with concern as they began the proceedings. We are gathered here to make a final determination on the classification of Earth and its dominant species, Ixthen announced. The evidence before us suggests that traditional classification methods are inadequate. We must consider implementing a new category specifically for this case. The Chamber's AI began summarizing the accumulated data. Military reports showed how humans had repeatedly defeated superior forces by exploiting seemingly insignificant weaknesses. Scientific studies revealed their bizarre combination of physical endurance and psychological resilience. Diplomatic incidents demonstrated their inability to leave problems unsolved, even hypothetical ones. Most disturbing, Yix then continued, is humanity's accelerating influence on galactic society. In the brief time since their discovery, they have caused more change than any species in the last 10,000 cycles. The evidence screens shifted to show the effects of human ideas spreading across the galaxy. Species that had been stable client races for millennia were suddenly asking questions, challenging traditions, seeking their own solutions to age-old problems. The careful balance of galactic civilization was being disrupted by what humans called thinking outside the box. A military representative, still bearing scars from an encounter with Earth forces, addressed the Council. They don't just defeat superior technology. They absorb and improve it. Every failed attempt to contain them makes them stronger. They learn from every encounter, adapt to every strategy, and freely share their knowledge with anyone who asks. The Xenobiology section presented their findings next. Humans exhibit a unique combination of traits that should be mutually exclusive. They are simultaneously highly individualistic and capable of unprecedented cooperation. They switch between competition and collaboration seamlessly. They treat death as simultaneously inevitable and unacceptable, fighting against it even when victory is impossible. Most concerning, added a representative from the diplomatic court, their form shifting anxiously, is their ability to inject chaos into stable systems. They don't just solve problems, they question why the problems exist in the first place. They don't just find new solutions, they invent entirely new ways of finding solutions. The chamber erupted in overlapping discussions as more evidence was presented. Humans had begun offering their unique problem-solving methodologies to any species that asked. They were conducting unauthorized archaeological studies of ancient ruins, asking questions that had been deliberately left unasked for millennia. They were even starting to explore regions of space marked as prohibited, simply because they wanted to know why they were prohibited. High Counselor Ix then raised their energy field to restore order. We must address the fundamental question. How do we classify a species that views every barrier as a challenge, every rule as a suggestion, and every impossible task as an opportunity? A silence fell over the chamber as the assembled representatives contemplated the implications. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species to be managed. They were a force of change in a galaxy that had valued stability above all else. Traditional classifications are based on technological level, military capability, or diplomatic influence. Yix then continued. But humans defy such categories. Their true danger lies not in what they can do, but in what they inspire others to do. The final vote was unanimous. Earth would receive a classification never before assigned in the history of the Galactic Council. The official record would show minimal information, no detailed explanations, just the highest possible danger rating and a simple warning. Don't even think about it. As the classification was entered into the Galactic Database, Yix then added a personal note to the sealed records. The greatest threat humanity poses is not their technology, their military, or even their relentless problem-solving. It is their ability to make other species ask why not, instead of why. They are a contagion of possibility, a virus of innovation, a plague of progress. And in a galaxy built on stability, there is nothing more dangerous than a species that makes change seem not just possible, but inevitable. The Council's final action was to seal all detailed information about Earth behind the highest security protocols. But even as they did so, messages were already flowing through the galaxy's communication networks, carrying human ideas and methodologies to every world that would listen. The Council could classify Earth as too dangerous to engage, but they couldn't stop the questions humans had already inspired others to ask. In the end, that would prove to be humanity's most profound impact on the galaxy, not their ability to solve problems, but their talent for helping others realize that the problems could be solved at all.